Welcome to the Graduate Job Podcast, your home for weekly information and inspiration to help you get the graduate job of your dreams.
Hello and welcome to the Graduate Job Podcast with your host, James Curran. The Graduate Job Podcast is your weekly home for all things related to helping you on your journey to finding that amazing job. Each week I bring together the best minds in the industry, speaking to leading authors, entrepreneurs, coaches and bloggers who bring decades of experience into a bite-sized weekly 30-minute show. Put simply, this is a show I wish I had when I graduated. In episode 40 of the Graduate Job Podcast, I'm joined by content marketing guru Chris Marr as we explore all aspects of getting a job in content marketing. As a founder of the Content Marketing Academy and the host of the Content Marketing Academy podcast, Chris is ideally placed to share exactly what you need to do to get started in this booming field. We explore the basics, from what exactly content marketing is, how and why you need to start building your brand online, to the key hints, tips and skills that will get you ahead as you start your career. It doesn't matter if you're a newbie to content marketing or you already have your own online platform, there is something in this episode to inspire you. As always, all links to everything we discuss and a full transcript are available in the show notes at graduatejobpodcast.com/content. Before we start, a quick request from me. Your feedback helps me to create the episodes that you want to hear, so I've set up a super simple and very quick survey as I want the show to best serve your needs. It's got just one question and will take you only a minute, so please check it out at graduatejobpodcast.com/survey. I look forward to hearing your thoughts, but in the meantime, let's crack on with the show. Before we start though, I want to welcome today's sponsor, which is careergym.com. Career Gym is the number one place for you to undertake all of your psychometric tests which you will face when you apply for a graduate job. You can practice verbal, numerical and abstract reasoning tests, all produced by experts and exactly the same as the ones you will see in the real tests. You can just practice them, or you could do them in exam mode under time pressure, and they come all with detailed explanations and solutions, and you can track your progress and see how you compare against your peers. I've been recommending the site for years to the clients I coach, and it comes very highly recommended. What's even better is if you use the code GJP, that's capital letters GJP for Graduate Job Podcast, you will get 20% off all of their tests. You can't say fairer than that. So head over to careergym.com, that's career and gym, GYM, and use the code GJP to get 20% off and start practicing today. Now on with the show. I'm excited today to welcome Chris Marr to the show. Chris is a director of Learning Everyday, a content marketing consultancy based in Scotland, and the founder of the Content Marketing Academy, the first and only content marketing conference in Scotland. Chris, a very warm welcome to the Graduate Job Podcast.
Thanks very much, James. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to getting stuck in and talking all about content marketing.
So am I, definitely. And as you mentioned, we're going to talk all about the different aspects of content marketing today. But before we do, would you like to describe a little bit more about yourself and how you came to be an expert in content marketing?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Just you in your intro there, you mentioned my older company, Learning Every Day, which is totally fine because we're in the middle of a rebrand at the moment. So we're currently moving over into a company called Content Marketing Academy. And just to give you a small snippet or insight into what's actually happened here, we started a conference back in 2014 called the Content Marketing Academy. And it just so happened that all kind of had a big impact on the people that were there. And what we realised is we were actually building a community around this branded, essentially a product or a service of Learning Every Day. And it got so popular and so big that we decided that we would actually change our name of our company to the actual service that we were providing. So we're kind of moving over now into this thing called the Content Marketing Academy, and that's going to be the name of our company. So it's a bit more obvious what we're all about and what we do. And getting started with this whole thing, and it's interesting, James, because when we had this our sort of pre-chat, I guess, before the interview, was that I started my first blog when I was a student in 2010. And I think I'd like to kind of get that across in the story. But really, when I published my first blog article, I was a student. I was working for someone else as well at the same time, and it kind of all just happened organically from there. I didn't know I was doing content marketing at the time. I had no idea what content marketing was until the last few years, since it's become a little bit more sort of popularized as far as the term's concerned in the marketing space. So I think there's an interesting story there, I think, for your audience, how went from writing a blog article in 2010 to getting my first contract in the summer as a consultant, simply because I was blogging and getting content out there, and how important that is. So it all started back in 2010 for me, a little bit before that, when Facebook landed in the UK and we started seeing social media sort of like coming into its own as well, and I got massively excited about that. I think I was possibly just the right age at the right time, or whatever. I was in the right place, doing the right things, and I just got really excited about the prospect of social media and content, really, to be honest, and this new way of communicating. And I think that for me at the time, it was just a case of trying to find something different to do, and you could obviously see that things were changing. The internet was changing entirely, and I'm glad that 5-6 years ago I decided to invest my time in learning about all of this stuff, because obviously it's kind of stuck around.
No, definitely. And is your original blog still going?
Yeah, I mean, its original blog is chrismarr.co.uk. So my very first article is still there. I don't blog so much on that website anymore, but I do add content every now and again. It's usually based around technology and entrepreneurship and stuff like that, stuff that's not so relevant to content.
Excellent, and we will link to everything we discuss over the course of the half hour in the show notes, so you'll be able to check them all out at graduatejobpodcast.com. But yeah, I'd love to explore later on just about how you managed to take that initial blog and build it into a career. Would be great to find out more about. But before we get into the detail, maybe if we just go back and up a level and think about content marketing as a whole, because it's something which is expanded massively in recent years, but one which might not be fully understood by some of the listeners. So first things first, Chris, what is content marketing?
Yeah, so it's possibly the most common question we get asked, and it's not difficult to explain what content marketing is. It's just that marketers have made it difficult to understand what it is, I think, by even creating the term content marketing. Content marketing is simply just a way of communication. It's a set of principles or a philosophy. It's not a tactic, so it's not like email marketing or advertising. It's not something you do. It's a way that you actually communicate. So, for example, it's the difference between telling people what you do and showing people what you do. Subtle but distinct difference in the two things. It's the difference between helping and selling, right? It's a different way of communication. It's your ability to communicate with your audience, your customers, your potential customers, whoever, without selling. So it's the ability for you to create content that actually helps people, that doesn't talk about your products and services all the time. And this stuff there's like amazing examples of all of this stuff happening on the internet today. I mean, every time you search for something in Google, when you've got a problem or a question, what you're presented with is a blog article, a video, or a podcast or something that answers your question or solves your problem. That's a piece of content marketing.
No, that's a really good point, and especially on services like YouTube and how-to guides and all those good things. Yeah, it's interesting just to see who's put them up and the reasons that they've put them up, and sometimes they're not immediately as obvious as you might think.
Exactly, and I mean the reason that people are doing this, there's people that are smart and they understand that things are changing, right? And the reason things are changing, there's three things to consider. There's consumer behavior, there's technology, and there's the internet in general, right? These things are changing the way that we do business today. So consumer behavior is kind of like at the forefront of all that, what people expect. The expectations are very high. They expect to have a really good experience on the internet. They expect when they type something into Google that they will find what they're looking for free. They want that information for nothing, because they want to be an educated consumer. They want to make an educated buying decision. And there's this knowledge shift between what salespeople used to know and what consumers now know. And consumers are in control. They are doing all of their research online before they contact a company or a business for the first time. And it's called the zero moment of truth. So the statistic that gets thrown around in the content marketing space is that 70% of the buying decision is made online before first contact. So the companies that understand this and get this are creating the content for people to do the research. They're answering their questions. They're solving their problems. They're giving out all the information away for free, knowing that they've got a much better chance of getting customers because of it. And those that aren't creating that content and providing that information for people online are simply losing customers that they never even knew that they had the chance to get. So there's just a massive shift in there. And obviously technology is a massive part to play in there. And the internet is just obviously just the biggest, the biggest game changer in all of that.
And what sort of industries and sectors are really embracing content marketing?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, you look at it, and I think when I first sort of thought about this question, I was thinking to myself, it's kind of across the board. It's really B2C, B2B, business services, products, goods, loads of things. I mean, you look at, it's hard to find really good UK examples. When we look at case studies, typically we're looking at places like in America, right? They're just ahead of the game. It's just the way it is. And I mean, when I think about case studies in the UK, I mean, one of the big examples that comes up that everybody's going to know is Red Bull, right? Red Bull produces a drink, an energy drink, right? And yet they are probably one of the biggest media companies on the planet. All the videos you watch, the skating videos, the snowboarding videos, all that stuff that you're watching online on Facebook and on YouTube, that's created by Red Bull. They've got a massive. They're essentially a media company. They just so happen to sell a drink as well. I can reel some stuff off here. I mean, we've got Pet Sitters Ireland, a woman called Kate McQuillan. She runs a pet sitting company in Ireland, and she's grown her business massively over 2 to 3 years, from 4 staff to 60 staff, all through content marketing. And all she's been doing is producing blog articles, 2 or 3 a week, answering questions. She's got something like 600 articles on her website now, where she's just really going at it and making sure that she's creating content that actually serves her audience. So in one respect, it's about looking at your audience, not your customers. A lot of businesses are focused on trying to get customers, but what content marketing is all about is building a relationship and an emotional connection with your audience. Because without an audience, you can't get prospects, and without that, obviously, you can't get customers. So that's another example, just to kind of touch on different industries. People have probably heard of the body coach, Joe Wicks. He's massive just now. Lean in 15 just published his book, one of the fastest selling books in the UK. He built his business all through content marketing, through short 15-second videos on Instagram. And then he took that up a notch and actually created an information product, basically, which was a bespoke plan for dieting. So Joe Wicks is a very relevant and very recent success case study in the UK.
I've seen his chiseled physique staring down at me from several large billboards on the way to work.
Exactly. So over the last 3 months, you'll have seen him on telly, you've seen him on the billboards, you would have seen him on TV advertising as well as TV interviews, videos, and in the newspaper as well. He is all over the place, but he literally, and you listen to his story, he started all that with a 15-second video on Instagram, and he said it himself in videos as well, where he kept doing it even though even though it felt like nobody was watching what he was doing, but he was consistent, he did it over a long period of time, and the next thing you know, his business is just absolutely exploding. Another example from the business services sector is Pete Matthew from Meaningful Money TV. He, over the last 5 or 6 years, he's produced videos and podcasts. He's got 300 videos, 145 podcast episodes, and he's basically become one of the most, if you go to iTunes and look at podcasts, he's in the top section there, the top 3, 4, 5 of podcasts in the money sector. And he's a single person, he's a guy in Penzance, but he's reaching a global audience now of 5,000 downloads a week with his podcast. So he's just building massive trust and a really strong relationship with his audience. So there's sort of a B2C example. In fact, they're all B2C examples, to be honest. And then you look at business services. I guess if we were to look at that, you could look at marketing companies, software companies like Buffer app. They produce amazing content. There's just so many great examples, James, to be honest, across all industries, all doing tons of different types of content. And one of the leaders in this industry is Gary Vaynerchuk, who produces his daily blogs, and he also produces the Ask Gary V show, and he's got his books, and he's just prolific. He's just embraced his whole personal brand, and that's someone I learned from back in 2010. It was a book I read was Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuk.
Great book.
It was a great book, and that's what inspired me to write my first blog article, because I knew that even though I was in a job that I still had to build my own personal brand. I knew that I wasn't going to be in that job forever. It's not I just didn't want to be, and I knew that there was something else out there for me. So embracing my personal brand, getting my own thoughts, getting my own knowledge out there onto the internet is the only reason why I am where I am today, really, to be honest. So there's loads of examples out there. You just have to kind of look for them. But yeah, I hope that gives you an insight into just what's possible.
So some great examples there, Chris. But then thinking, you talked earlier about how you started your blog and whilst you were working, and from the blog then came your first consulting gig. But I think putting yourself in the position of a student who's listened to everything you've said, thinks it sounds great, wants to get into content marketing, how can they as a student begin to build a brand for themselves and begin to build that presence in content marketing?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I love it because I speak to students all the time. I get to go to the local college and the local universities, and I ask a question typically while I'm there. Who's got a blog? Have you got a blog? Put your hand up if you've got a blog. And very few have. And my biggest advice, and I know you're going to ask me this question later on, which is which one tip should listeners implement today to help their job search, is start a blog. Start a blog today, a WordPress blog, get it on medium.com, start it on linkedin.com, whatever. Get your ideas out there, your thoughts, just anything to build your own personal brand. So content is absolutely key to this. So writing a blog article. If I was hiring someone today in marketing, for example, a content marketer, I would want to see that you have at least attempted to create some content of your own, or that you have your own WordPress blog or something like that. That shows me that you've got the skill to publish a web page. These things aren't difficult. You just have to learn. Unfortunately, you don't get taught this kind of stuff at university. I graduated from St Andrews in business in 2013, and no one has ever asked me for my degree. But at the same time, I've really not taken anything into application from it either. Like there's this set of skills that you need as a marketer to be able to publish something. Have a brand, have a presence on social media. So LinkedIn, Facebook, look at the new mediums like Snapchat, Periscope, and Blab. Be there. One of the biggest tips I can give to a student is to make sure you've got a really good personal brand, a really good image, that you've thought about it. So a professional picture, for example, is something simple, not you in your graduation gown with a glass of wine, and not you out partying, but a picture of you that's professional and it kind of captures your personality. Obviously, you have to be careful about what you publish online, but at the end of the day, we're in an age now where people want to work for people that they like, and people want to hire people that they like as well. So getting your personality out there is not such a bad thing. When I was at university, a lot of people were locking down their Facebook and changing their names and all the rest of it, and I was doing the exact opposite. I want people to find me. I don't want to work for someone that that wants me to be someone else. So I think your whole personal branding is so important. And if you're going into marketing today, and that's what it's all about, we're talking about content marketing positions or jobs or opportunities. And as a business owner in marketing, we're thinking about hiring this year again, and I would very much be looking for someone that has a blog. I can type your name into Google and I can find you, and I can read about you and figure out who you are and what you're all about and what you're interested in. That's what I'd be looking for. So yeah, very much a great focus for your efforts is to build your own personal brand, and a lot of that comes in education as well, James. So reading some books on personal branding, looking at some blogs, following someone like Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, or any of these people that I've just mentioned who have effectively done that exact thing, as they've built their personal brand. And to be honest with you, as a student, if you're in your late teens, early 20s, you've just got the biggest opportunity right now. It's right at your fingertips. It's never been easier to do this. The opportunity is huge. I mean, when I was in my 20s, the internet was just really like only 10 years old, and it was clunky and it was horrible, and building a website was nasty. And now you can do it like for free. You can do it at the click of a button. You don't need the skills that you needed 10 years ago. And look at the YouTubers. Look at the guys that on YouTube right now that are killing it with like millions of subscribers, and they're making millions of dollars a year. They're they're teenagers, and they're in their early 20s. That's happening. The world has changed dramatically in such a short space of time. And I know that your audience is people who are graduates. You need to embrace this new way of communication. It's not about putting your CVs out to 50 people anymore. You need to tick a lot more boxes than that. You need to have a presence. You need to be around. You need to understand what's happening and how things are changing. It's changing dramatically all the time.
I completely agree. And for people who are listening, thinking, oh, well, I don't know how to start a blog, or I don't know how to create a website, on YouTube you can type in how to start a blog. There'll be people who'll tell you how to do it in 2 minutes flat.
Yeah,
or how to set up your own WordPress site within under 5 minutes and probably for no cost. All the information you need is out there. You just gotta look for it. And no one's born knowing how to do these things. Everybody's learned at some point. Yeah. So you just need to bite the bullet, embrace it, and to go for it.
Yeah, thousands of people have done this. People in their. I mean, I'm following someone on Snapchat that's in her 60s. Okay, so if she can do it, anybody can kind of do it. And I think that you've just got to be curious enough to figure it out for yourself. If you're a student and you're graduated from university, I would. You'd argue that you're intelligent enough to make that move. You're going to be able to do it. There's the only thing that's holding you back is yourself, and you just need to. It's just that you just need to kind of realize that the world is changing. It's like a global audience. You've got the ability to create video, radio, magazine. You can do all of that stuff right in front of your laptop. You can do it all from your mobile phone. So yeah, I think anyone listening to the show is to just think about your own personal brand, get your own website, get your own domain name, and start taking a bit of ownership around your own path in life and your career.
What advice would you give to people who aren't sure about what to create content about, what to blog about, or what to create videos about?
Yeah, so have a passion, right? So for example, you might want to start, it's a great question, yeah. So I'm not sure what to write about. Everybody's got a hobby. Whether it be like an underground music collection or something like that, or maybe you play guitar, or maybe you're like into comic books or something like that. Whatever, just use your hobby, your passion as a sort of a drive or motivation to produce some sort of content. So, yeah, I would start there. Start with something that you're passionate about. What I was passionate about when I started my blog was management and leadership and customer service. So that's what I wrote about, my experiences and what I was doing. But then I quickly went into marketing and content marketing, and I started writing about that. So, having the platform there was great because I was able to just write whatever I wanted. Whether someone was reading it or not was another matter altogether. But the point is that just find something you're passionate about and then start to write about it. Start to create some content around that passion. And what will happen is as a result, you'll learn how to do all the things that you need to be able to do today.
And I think making sure that the thing you think you're passionate about is really what you're passionate about will quickly become apparent, because if you're writing the blog post and you're not getting the immediate feedback, if you want to give up after one post, then you might not be blogging about the right thing.
That's right, yeah, exactly. So yeah, you're totally right. And I think having your own website's so good for that though, because I had chrismarr.co.uk to begin with, and the great thing about having my own website is I can just publish whatever I want there. Nobody's in control of me. I could swear there, I can rant there, I can do whatever I want, and it's under nobody's in control of me at that point. If I decide that in 2 years' time I want to start writing about writing about guitar or something like that, or piano, I can do that there. It's my own space to talk and to write and to produce, and that's fine. I think that it's important to have your own platform these days.
Definitely. And what about what advice would you give to people who might have the common fear of who am I? Who's going to listen to me? What do I have to say? There's a load of experts out there. I'm not an expert yet.
No, you're right. I mean, I'm not an expert yet either. I mean, you said that in your introduction, and I'm thinking, oh God, I've still got a lot of work to do. You know what? Everyone's got learning to do. I would come back to a quote on that one by Zig Ziglar, which is, you don't have to be great to start, but you do have to start to be great. And I think everyone started, like Joe Wicks is a great example that we talked about earlier. He had to do that first 15-second video. At some point he had to do it. When nobody had no followers and no one was listening, he had to do it. Was he an expert 2.5 years ago? No, he wasn't. Does he know more now because of it? Absolutely. He's probably excelled in his learning because of his content. So you do have to publish that first article. You do have to publish that first video. And you have to realize that by doing that, you will build your expertise. It's almost like, the whole adage is if you want to learn, you have to teach. Same thing, learn something, put it into practice, see what the results are, teach it to others, rinse, repeat, and keep going like that. And you will build your expertise, you will build your personal brand, you'll build your authority in whatever you're passionate about. And I think that's the key. There's a lot of people, though, that will allow that fear to hold them back. Like the first articles I published were like, it was a good example. I published a bucket list was my first thing. I published my goals, what I wanted to achieve, or what I wanted to have, or where I wanted to visit over the next however long. Right, that's just a piece of content. I didn't care if anyone read it or not. But then a couple of weeks later, I started doing some management stuff, and I bumped into someone, and she said, "Oh, I was going to do that exact same thing, Chris." And I was like, "Well, you can still do it, but I am doing it, and you're not doing it. Why is that?" And it's the reason is they just haven't bothered to do it. They haven't thought hard enough about it, or they just don't have the passion to do it. So I think there's a big gap between everybody that wants to do it and then everyone that does. So I think the opportunity is where that person, if you're listening to the show, if you publish that article, like, you are now in a smaller percentile. You're separating yourself from the masses by just publishing. So if you want to be different and you want to differentiate from other people and you want to stand out, then you've got to do something different. And this is this opportunity that you've got right now.
There's a quote I like from Philip McKernan which says, "In the absence of clarity, take action." Yes. So even if you're not 100% sure what it is that you want to blog about, if you start, then it might not be the first things you mentioned. The first things you blog about might not be where you end up, but you need to, from get to A to C, you need to go to A and B, and the path will wind, but you'll get there in the end.
Exactly. You might only be able to see the next step. It's about taking that step so you can see the next one afterwards. I totally agree with that, and I think that it's an important part, because there's a lot of fear wrapped up in all of this stuff. No one will read it. Why would someone read it? What if someone reads it and hates me? What if someone reads it and gives me a negative comment or something like that? At least you're doing something. You're doing something different. If someone leaves a negative comment or something or some sort of negativity around your content, at least you're getting someone's opinion. You're getting someone's emotion in there. You weren't doing anything before. So I think that there's a lot of positives to see in the whole thing, regardless of how you do it. But the important thing is that you actually do it.
Definitely. And you mentioned in your excellent 10-day content marketing crash course, which I'll link to in the show notes, the 3 C's of being a consumer, curator, and creator. Could you run us through what each of these are and the steps along the way?
Yeah, sure. So if you are looking to get kind of started in content, so for example, say you were wanting to start a blog for yourself, and it was about something you're passionate about. It doesn't matter what it is at the moment. The best thing you can do to start with is this has actually come through from a lot of the interviews that we've done on our podcast as well, is the first thing you can do is go and look and see who else is producing content in that space. So if it's, some sort of personal something you're passionate about, go into the Google and see who's doing what, who's got the greatest blogs, why are they working, what seems to be the best medium for what it is they're doing, who seems to be the thought leaders in that space. And the best is basically research at this stage. You kind of bookmark it or save some content into Evernote, and basically become a consumer. Start consuming the content. You might even want to start creating a voice for yourself in other people's content, and what I mean by that is just commenting, sharing their content on social media, getting involved in the conversation, be seen in that environment and within the conversation. So that could involve going into Google and looking at blogs, jumping onto LinkedIn and looking at groups and people that are publishing content on Pulse, or it could be jumping into Facebook groups or other communities where you want to be seen in that, and wherever your passion is sort of driving you towards. So be a consumer, and it never stops. And the next stage is, you mentioned curator as well, and the best sort of analogy I can give for that is imagining that you are a museum curator, and the room that you're standing in just now is your museum, and in order to get people to come into your museum, you have to put other people's work on the walls, other people's art on the walls for them to come in. None of the content is yours, but the room is. So what you can start to do there is, like, if you're not quite ready to create your own unique content with your own voice, is you can actually start to comment on others. So for example, say you found a series of videos that sort of that were part of what you were trying to achieve or were related to the topics that you wanted to talk about. You could put those videos into your blog article and express your opinion about what they are or what you learned from them. We do a lot of that still. Or you can share other people's content on social media as well and curate that content and send it out to your audience. A lot of thought leaders and a lot of people who are prolific in the marketing space just now curate tons of content, and it's a case of finding great content, sharing it with your audience, and the point is that you don't necessarily have to create every single piece of content. In fact, if some of the content out there is the best of breed in your industry, then why should you create that piece of content? Why not just share what's already there? And at that point, once you've done all of that research, It's now time for you to create your own piece of content, and hopefully what you have found is a bit of a gap maybe where you could fit in, where your voice could be heard, or you could be very specific about what you want to write about. You have a bit of clarity on what medium you want to use, whether it be written or audio or video, and then go from there. So you kind of have to go through the stages. I mean, it was like when I was starting the podcast a couple of years ago, the first thing I started doing was listening to podcasts, specifically marketing ones. Who's doing what? How are they doing it? How can I be different? Where's my voice going to fit in? What am I going to add? Where can I add value? All of that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of research goes into there, but the big advantage that comes from it is at the same time you can build your personal brand there by having a presence. So making sure that people can see you, especially if you're commenting and emailing people and making contacts and growing your network through that whole process.
That makes so much sense. And if you're not too confident at the beginning, then just having a blog which where you can curate articles is a great place to start, and then an easier place to start with before you start putting your own content out there.
Yeah, now we do, honestly, James, we do tons of curation. We know that we can't create every single piece of content, but we also know that there's tons of great content out there already from people that we really admire. So we'll take their video and we'll say, this is what we learned from this video, and we'll put our own opinion on it. It's still a unique piece of content, but it's been driven by someone else's content. There's no harm in doing any of that at all. I think it's a really good thing to do, especially if you want to get opinions from people, if you want to share someone else's content with your audience. It's a good place to start. It's also a good thing to do even if you have started already.
So moving forward then, and listeners have now got their blogs up, they're blogging about particular industries or sectors that they're interested in. How can they make the shift from having a personal blog to getting that job with somebody else?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think this is almost like saying, how do you get a sale from content marketing? It's the same sort of question, I guess. Is how do you get that result? And you have to be so there's a couple of things. You have to be patient, and you have to put in a lot of effort. As a sort of caveat to this whole thing. It's definitely not going to be like publish a blog article, someone read it, someone phones you, someone gives you a job. It just doesn't work like that. But what you need to do is you need to have this presence that we've talked about. You need to be publishing content regularly, so that you're constantly around and people can see you. And it's very much, you're not going to be spamming people, obviously, but creating content that's interesting. And I think that that's important. So making sure that you are available on platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. You might even want to be investing your time in looking at something like Periscope or live broadcasting through Snapchat stories or something like that as well. And just be around, basically. It's almost like the concept of being everywhere. And it's not that difficult to do now, especially with the smartphone technology and things like that. So if I was a student today, I would want to make sure that I have covered all my bases, that I've got all the major I'm present on all major platforms. I've got my own unique content source, which is my website, where people can see pictures of me. They can see an about page. There's a contact page there where someone can reach me. I've got my own email address. Things like that makes it look like I've really thought about this and I'm professional. Instead of having like a Hotmail address or a Gmail address, I've actually got my own domain. And I think little things like that don't cost a lot of money and very easy to set up. Those are the kind of things that I would be doing. And by doing that, by being everywhere and by getting on all these major platforms, it's going to be difficult to ignore you. But when it comes to applying for jobs, make sure that you're telling people that this is the stuff that you're doing, that they can visit your blog. That's a great. If I saw that on a CV, visit my blog, I would go straight there. That would be the first thing I would do. I'm maybe different than other people, but I would want to get a feel for who you are as a person. A CV isn't going to do that for me. In fact, interviews can sometimes be deceiving as well. So encourage people to follow you online. Connect with thought leaders. Connect with people in the industry that you want to be in. So adding people on LinkedIn, getting into Facebook groups are fantastic. There's so many great Facebook groups and industry-specific ones as well. Get in there. Start having conversations with people. Show people that you're interested in what you're doing. You're playing the long game, but you're being smart, and you're really trying to build a relationship up with people. I think that's more important today. Building relationships and building your network, I think, is absolutely key. And if you can get recommendations, set up meetings, have coffee with people, have Skype chats with people, just go out there and build your network and connect with people. That's exactly what I do today, and it's exactly what I'd do if I was if I was 10 years younger and I was listening to this. Funny thing is that this might be the right time for someone to hear this, and it might not be. But I think that is the right things to do today. I think if you're a graduate and you're looking to find you're maybe frustrated about the fact that you can't get a job or you can't find the job you're looking for, think what you would do if you were like running your own business. If you were your own business and you had to find a client, but in this case you're actually trying to find a job. You know, you've got to network, you've got to get out there, you've got to meet people, you've got to get introductions, you've got to be seen, you know. So those are all things that I would be doing. I hope that helps.
Well, I think they're brilliant points, and yeah, definitely ones for people to think about. So thinking specifically about the Content Marketing Academy, you're hiring yourself. What are the key skills that you're looking for in the people that you're going to be hiring?
Yes, this is a really good point, and this is where it comes to, like we talked about earlier, about the skills that you don't get when you're at university. I think if you've gone to a good school, then you'll have a thirst for scholarship, you know, for learning, reading books, and that's great. You'll probably have a really good level of writing as well, I would imagine, which is a big part of it. But I mean, the kind of things that you're going to be expected to do, I think, when it comes to a content marketing position, is that you're, I guess, as far as skill sets or tasks is concerned, you want to be possibly publishing video, or at least driving the strategy behind video, so scripts, direction, writing and publishing blogs, potentially writing scripts and publishing and recording podcasts. Email marketing would be a big part of that. You probably want to have some experience with Google and search engine optimization and using Google Analytics. Social media, obviously, being able to sort of adapt to those platforms, writing and updating web content, and I think one of the big parts is really investing your time over the long term of continuous education, development and training as well. I think those are the kind of things that a content marketer should be, or a content manager, or whatever the role might be within that organisation. But in general, I think you need to enjoy writing, because everything starts in the written word. You need to be a good teacher, I think, as well. So what I mean by that is the philosophy or approach you have to content. So when you're writing content, it's coming across in an educational kind of way. You want to teach people or help people live a better life. But also from an internal communications perspective, when it comes to this content manager role, there's only probably going to be one or a couple of people, depending on the size of the organisation, but probably just one. You're the evangelist. You're the owner of the content marketing strategy. You're the one that has to teach other people within the organisation about it all and get them on board and evangelise it and inspire other people. So communication's a big part of that role as well, just generally. And when I talk about social media, I don't mean the ability to use social media or do social. It's actually like you're inherently social. You know, that's just who you are and how you go about your day-to-day stuff. And so social media is just like is second nature to you as far as the platforms are concerned. So that's kind of like what I would say, communication team player. And I guess the final thing is that you're just prepared to try new things. You're open to learning. You've got an open mind, and you want to do things differently.
I love those points, and just expanding on what you said, if you're going for a job and they're saying, you know, what do you know about search engine optimization or email marketing? If you can give them real examples of how on your blog you've tried to tweak the SEO or strategies that worked for you for email marketing, and you can show that you've actually done it, it's going to stand you in much better stead than people who can talk theoretically about it but have never actually done it.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you're sitting idle just now, I'm not saying idle, but you're applying for jobs, you can't think what you're looking for, reach out to your network, your family. I mean, if you've got your parents or your family, your friends' parents might know somebody that runs a small business that would like help with internet marketing, go work for them for free. Go do some work for them for nothing and get some experience, and then write about your results on your own blog and so on and so forth. That's one way to really get yourself out there and to get involved in something. I mean, that would be my advice anyway, is to just go do some work for free. I did it. I'm not saying that you should do it, but if you are sitting there and you're really struggling and you're trying to find something to do, is go and create something, go and help someone and create some content and sort of document your results. And that will stand you in good stead when it comes to getting interviews and getting jobs.
Spot on. And one final question, because time is running away with us, Chris. Has there been any applicants to the Content Marketing Academy that have really stood out for you, and people who've done something different or just made you really sit back and think, wow, I really need to hire this person?
Yeah, well, we run a very small organisation here, so all this we've never done interviews before. I hired organically, so it's been through recommendation, and I'll have a call with them and I'll assess whether I want to hire them or not. So we've had the luxury of having a really good, strong network, myself personally, so I can reach into that. I guess to answer your question, I could answer your question based on what my clients have done, if that's easier. I think that there's one story I'd share with you. It's a girl called Vicky who came into an organisation that was part of one of our programs, our masterclass programs, which is really for business owners who want to learn about content marketing. She came in as a sort of intern for 12 or 15 or 20 weeks or something like that, and she came along to our program every once a month as well, and she had an idea of what she wanted to do as a career, and by the end of the program she had changed what she wanted to do from whatever it was to content marketing. So it was quite interesting to see how she was inspired and motivated, and just her whole frame of thought changed because she went, she basically made a big transition from what she wanted to do to content marketing because she got really excited about it and she could see the opportunity with it as well. And when you're hiring someone, you do want people that are fun, exciting, that can get fired up about stuff. They're not boring and miserable, because that can just drag everything down. But the people that we're working with are hiring content managers. That is happening. These are small businesses as well. These are people that maybe in the past wouldn't even think about hiring a marketing manager, but they're hiring young people in their early 20s who like technology, who want to do something different, and I think that those jobs are going to be becoming more and more popular as time goes on.
Brilliant. That's a great point for us to finish on. So, Chris, before we finish, you mentioned earlier, you gave us a little tease to some of your answers to the weekly staple questions. But going back to that, what one book would you recommend that listeners should read?
Yeah, I was thinking about that's such a tough question. Based on the audience, I think the best thing you could read would be... Oh, it's such a tough one. I've got two in my head. Can I give you two?
Go on then.
Okay.
I'll let you sneak them.
The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Okay,
good book.
And that's a fantastic book about motivation. I revisit that book often. It gets you fired up, and it gets you sort of like focused on what you do. Another book that I would read if I was you as well is The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. It gets you really focused on what it is that you want to do in your life. So those two books would be top of the list, and it's difficult to know which one, but those two. So The One Thing by Gary Keller and The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
And it's been a bonus this week, listeners, because we've also snuck in Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuk.
That's true, yeah.
And Chris, what one website would you recommend listeners visit?
Yeah, again, a tough one. I think if you're looking for a content marketing job and you want to get more involved in content marketing, and you want to sort of like educate yourself and teach yourself about all this stuff, and you want the cutting edge information, then I think the best website you could go to, and it just cut right to the good stuff, is thesaleslion.com, and that's a guy called Marcus Sheridan that runs that company, and he's one of the thought leaders in the whole world on content marketing, and he produces some great content that's really, really down to earth. He's got his feet firmly on the ground when it comes to that. It's non-technical, but I'll give you a great insight into what content marketing really is all about for businesses today. Excellent.
And finally, you mentioned it earlier, but what one tip should listeners implement today to help on their job search?
Yep, I think it's I said start a blog, but really if you wanted to be a bit more wider than that, it's really just to create content. So start a video channel, start a podcast, start a blog, one of those things. If you just look at YouTube, is blowing my mind right now because the quality and the consistency of content that's coming from people on there, young people, is incredible. Like, it's better than professionals type of content. It's amazing. So really just get involved in that and create your own content.
Chris, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. Before we finish, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you and the work that you do?
The best way for people to get in touch with me is on Twitter at Chris Marr 101, and if you've got any questions about anything that we've covered today, please just tweet me, add me on Twitter, and just ask any questions that you have.
Chris, many, many thanks for appearing on the Graduate Job Podcast.
You're welcome, James. It was my pleasure.
Many thanks to Chris Marr for his time today. 40 minutes of cracking content. Listen, digest, and have a listen again, as there was lots of points to take in. One key quote stood out for me that is especially pertinent, namely Zig Ziglar's quote, "You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great." Now listen back to this episode and make your start in content marketing today. So there you go. Thanks for listening. Please leave me a review on iTunes if you've enjoyed the show. If you want to get in touch, you can contact me on Twitter at GradJobPodcast or hello@graduatejobpodcast.com. Let me know if you're enjoying the show, and I'd love to hear your success stories of jobs and internships you've got. Also, say hello to Chris, who's on @ChrisMarr101 on Twitter. Now, please do check out my very short survey of one question at graduatejobpodcast.com/survey. It will be a big help. Stay tuned next week when I have Annabelle Smoker on and we discuss what you need to do to get a job in nursing. I hope you enjoyed the show today, but more importantly, I hope you use it and apply it. See you next week.